Minister of Energy, our Minister of Energy, and your colleagues from Mozambique, Botswana, other ministers, cabinet ministers in our country, and provincial minister. Let me acknowledge the foreign dignitaries that are here. Obviously, Rockefeller Foundation colleagues, Mission 300 colleagues, British High Commissioner, who's seated with us upstairs, and your other ambassadors and High Commissioners accredited to Zambia. I see a number of you here. We're delighted to see you at this forum, because this forum is important to all of us on the continent. Very, very important. I must also acknowledge, truly acknowledge, someone I'm now calling Lady Hope Chanda. Lady Hope Chanda, for the work she's doing to pull this forum together last year and now this year. Thank you, Hope, for what you're doing. And I've been having pep talks with her that we must get this thing done. We must get the job done. And as she gathers us and her colleagues gathers us here, our focus is to get the job done. So, and because the need is there, and I'll touch on that just a little bit. Our traditional leaders that are present, the ministers here, and other public sector workers, central government, local government, indeed, leaders of industry, business. I see some mining houses here, which is very important, and that's where a lot of the demand point is coming from for electricity, and rightly so. So thank you for being here, and also Stanbic and your financial sector colleagues. You did not let the president down. Since last year, you've worked and delivered on what we discussed. I want to thank the leadership of the utilities ESCO. Upstairs, we were chatting about what ZESCO was just a few years ago and what it is today after the reforms, or as we implement the reforms. And I will touch on that, which is extremely important to why we're here today. So ZESCO, thank you for opening up. You had to open up anyway, otherwise it was difficult for you to continue. But it is our assets, that's our business as a country. And I'm glad that your other utility colleagues are here in the hall, because there's a lot we need to do together in the region if we have to address this problem in a definitive way. Very important. I must also acknowledge, obviously, the other sectors that are here, partners, cooperating partners, indeed the press, members of the press, esteemed delegates. Let me start by welcoming you here. Join my colleagues to welcome you to Lusaka, to Zambia, especially those of you who are traveling from outside Zambia, led by our two ministers from Mozambique, Botswana. We're delighted to have you here, truly delighted to have you here at our second shot at this discussion. And I must quickly thank Hope Chand and your colleagues again for organizing this forum. Obviously, you are building your consistency now in doing that. So thank you very much. A lot has been said. I don't want to repeat what has already been articulated by my colleagues who have spoken before me, and they've all spoken well, emphasized different things which are all important to why we're here. But just to indicate that since last year's forum here, a lot has been done in many areas. As a country, we've continued with the reforms in the electricity subsector. And these reforms are fundamental to the agenda that we are here for, universal access to electricity. All our people, yes, Mission 300 is important, but upstairs I indicated to my colleague, the CEO of Mission 300, that can we change the narrative? Mission 300 is making electricity available to 300 million Africans. But the population of Africa is well above 1.3, north of 1.3, 1.5 billion people. So this agenda is too narrow. We need to focus on universal access to electricity for all our people on the continent. That, I think, is important. We must raise our ambitions, and necessarily so. Who is that African who will accept not to be part of the target for them to receive electricity? How are we going to discriminate? These ones must not receive electricity, these ones must receive electricity. I think our citizens of the continent will not accept to be in the second or third category. So my encouragement is that we must focus on universal access to electricity. And that brings obvious economic benefits. Electricity, the engine of our economic growth and more growth agenda for us in Zambia. That's our trajectory. But to drive economic growth and more growth, it is that which will deliver social growth, benefits in the social economic sectors, in the community support for the weak, for those that require support. But electricity lagging behind, shortages that we have for historical reasons, in some cases, one that because we've been a mono-energy economy, hydro largely, and drought, especially the last drought, worst in living memory, decapitated us terribly. And the horns were sounded that we have been exposed, even though we were happy that we were already a green economy in terms of energy country. But the exposure has been glaring, so we need to address that issue expeditiously. But also, another good story that even many Zambians are not paying attention. The gap, you can say, shortage of electricity may have been like that because of the drought, which we have to address. But the gap is growing now because the economy is growing, which means the demand for electricity is growing. So we have to work harder. We have to work faster. We have to mobilize resources quicker than ever before. And I'll be talking about the price of investible resources. We've been paying too much. Everybody knows I'm going to touch this thing. I cannot leave it untouched. The price of capital for our continent has been discriminatory, too high. Some sector, some business, Africa pays more than anyone else in the world. That is not correct. That's actually part of the inhibition to our growing the energy sector. We need to address those issues. So, but back to reforms. The government here will continue working on the reforms. Open access, independent power producers, which was taboo to talk about a few years ago in this country. You talked of electricity, it was ZESCO. Anything else, you are in the wrong room if you raise a matter like that. For my sins of the past, my private sector days, two of my colleagues and I tried to invest in energy, and we were whipped like small boys because you are not allowed to do that. Today, the reforms are making it possible, and we will continue with those reforms to support the agenda for universal access to electricity for Africans, for the world, I must say, citizens of the world. So, independent power producers, independent traders, net metering. So, it's already been touched. I'm just emphasizing power blending. I haven't heard someone say this. Part of our reforms is to blend the power. There will be some expensive sources. Zambians know what I'm talking about. One of the sources will be generating power at 33 cents per kilowatt hour. It's pretty high. But if we produce then power, certain sources at 7 cents, 8 cents per kilowatt hour, because the demand is there, we can blend these two and make power affordable to the consumer so that they can contribute to the provision of electricity for our economic needs. These are all part of the reforms. And I'm here to say that the government will continue with industry players working on these reforms, including dropping down to legislation, not regulation. The vision is clear, but the reforms, but then dropping down to follow these reforms to the legislative level next door in Parliament. I think one of my colleagues mentioned about the Electricity Act. That's only one tiny part, but the whole legislative framework is being reviewed to support the reforms and regulations. Laws, regulations. Let me give you an example to put context to what I'm saying. Before we took office 4 years ago, you wanted to invest in 20 megawatts of power. That time, it maybe cost you, if it's solar, roughly $20 million. 1 to 1. 1 megawatt to $1 million. But you had to get the environmental assessment under ZEMA. To walk through that, you needed 25 months to get an approval to invest 20 megawatts. Now, if we're in a shortage situation, when are we going to cover the gap? So part of the reforms we're doing, my message to this forum, is that now you can get your approval on an assumption of presumptive approval. Presumptive approval. At least 48 hours, you get your approval. Now look at the difference, 25 months and 48 hours. If it's not happening, I want to hear participants in this forum to raise the flag so we can address that issue and put in context to what we're having to do as a country. 48 hours? No. 25 months. More than 2 years. The process approved. This is not a way we can develop, expand electricity. So I'm pushing this so that colleagues in the region, you can also reflect on your own situation at home. What are the regulatory approvals? We need to clean these up, and we need to harmonize. Since we are one market, we need to harmonize. And the things that you're doing in your market, which we are not doing here, we would like to learn from you. And this is the opportunity to exchange notes, so that we can also checklist those things and deal with them in an organized, intentional manner. That's my challenge. I throw out the workshop forum here. So reforms are important. If we didn't inject these reforms in the electric sector, with the drought of last year, we would have never achieved growth in the economy, because it wasn't just possible to continue operations in certain mines, in certain factories, and indeed agriculture, irrigation. So I make a shout. But in terms of deliverables, beyond the reforms, I think quite a bit has been done. You heard the story of the 100 megawatts in Chisamba, so. And the parties are congratulated. ZESCO subsidiary, ZESCO, financing, Stanbic. And this was organized and delivered within 10 months. Ordinarily in this country, that project, just with the ZEMA approvals alone, would have taken 2 years to 3 years. Now we're able to do it in 10 months. I think we need to acknowledge the improvements that we're making, but still we can do a lot more. I threw two challenges when I went to officiate at the Chisamba 100 megawatts. One, I made an observation that we paid too much. We paid $100 million for 100 megawatts. That was the price of 3-4 years ago. We should take advantage of the research and development, the benefits coming from lowering the cost of solar from $1 million per megawatt to $700,000 per megawatt, now to between around $650,000 for 1 megawatt. We would like to see that to come through, Madam Hope and all the players here, in our costings of the projects. I am personally sensitive to the price we pay for anything that we do. And then it means in $100 million, we can do more. We can generate more. I raise it there. Second thing I said, we could do 100 megawatts in 7 months and not 10 months. That's another challenge I'm throwing to the colleagues in this one. So, other things have been touched. Let me simply say to the global community, investment community, Africa is coming to the table with viable projects in the energy sector. Africa is not asking for philanthropy in this sector. It's asking for investable resources coming at a fair price, and you are assured of a commercial return. You are assured of satisfying your shareholders' expectations. Because for us in Zambia, with our trajectory of 3 million tons of copper, only copper, and knocking at the doors of 1 million tons this year, first time in history, it means more energy. There's Anton seated there. He's looking for more power. Come and work with us on the continent. JV with us. And your shareholders' money is safe. Because Anton is the ultimate customer for the power generated, traded, transmitted through the open access to his mine, which he's expanding big time. Super pit. $2 billion of investment is going on in Lumwana mine alone to open a super pit. It's all energy required. And he will be able to pay. You cannot get better projects than that, which are tied to the revenue source through a medium to longer term contract, 5 years, 10 years, power purchase agreement. This is what Africa is presenting to the global investment community. And the tickets are quite good. We are looking at, in a couple of years, 10 or so years, to get to 10 gigawatts, 10,000 megawatts. By any standards, 10 gigawatts is not collectively a small project. Indian High Commission. Great opportunities. My colleague from Egypt here, we've been talking specific projects. This is the time to get those colleagues I met at the Zambia, Egypt Business Forum in Cairo. There is a pipeline. It's there. There is the demand. Effective demand. Not potential demand, effective demand. The two are different. Demand that will pay. And in this country, colleagues, probably it's the only country in the region which has no exchange controls. Our foreign exchange mechanism, we've not been promoting a lot. We have no exchange controls. You bring in capital, you make your money, you pay your taxes, you repatriate the profits to your shareholders. I would like this to be part of the selling point That should also help us lower the cost when the capital is available. I hope I'm talking to somebody. So now, let's do the business. Small, medium-sized projects, large-scale projects. With our reforms, nothing stands in the way. Take account of the technology improvements I've talked about, we generate more. But with the ticket we're talking about, 10 gigawatts, we have a lot of work to do. But it's a good space to be in because we have good business we're presenting as Zambia, as Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, region, and the continent put together. More importantly, your market is not restricted to Zambia when you generate. Your market is now the region. For example, our Southern African power pool, that's your market. Generate here, but you sell it to the region. That is why in the region, colleagues, my 2 ministers, 3 ministers there, we should talk opening up the roads for electricity, interconnectors. Get the interconnectors going. We don't have to wait. Zambia, Tanzania interconnect will allow us to join the 2 markets, Southern African power pool and Eastern African power pool. That interconnect. I think if you are profiling projects, that is an important consideration. By return on your investment, by the size of the market. Two-way trading. Last year, Tanzania had an excess. We were in deficit because of the drought. They couldn't sell power to us. Just next door, Hakainde and Mbeya. They couldn't sell the power to us just because we have not invested in interconnect. I think these are the rigidities that we've had as countries, individual countries, and the region. And we who are political leaders now are critical to open up these opportunities and drop these to our ministers. And I heard, Minister Botswana, what you said. And thank you for the MOU that we've signed. I think we need to clap for Botswana and Zambia. And President Boko and I, when he paid us a state visit, we said, driving now irrigation agriculture. We want to see power. Then we can grow our capacity to assure food security for our countries and our region. God gave us the endowments, good agronomical conditions, soils. With drought, we still have water. We need to harvest it. We need to irrigate. We need technology there. But ultimately, we need power to irrigate. I guess the message is delivered, colleagues. So let me close by saying we would like to see a checklist of deliverables, specific deliverables by the time you close this one, in different levels, different areas. Reforms, associated things in there, generation side, transmission in country, transmission across countries, interconnectors. By the way, these boundaries we have in our region are so artificial. I'm aware of a country, two countries at one point, where the elder brother was a minister in the neighboring country, the young brother was a minister in the other country. But both of them were true citizens of the two countries. How did that happen? It means someone drew the borders for us. Sorry to the Europeans. You guys sat there and drew borders for us and never even talked to us. And you ended up splitting families in that way. It's okay. No quarrels. But we now want to say these borders are artificial for us. We need electricity. We need joint investments. I'm glad to say Botswana, Zambia, again, after meeting President Boko, we agreed that private sector, Zambian private sector, Botswana private sector must be working on projects at a generation point in the two countries. And when we talk of investors, we should consider, yes, domestic investors, but also regional investors. It's a point I'm making. I expect these conversations to come out in your meetings today and a few days going forward. I think I want to close once again, as I said, we want to see clear deliverables. And with these words, I want to say that the Energy Forum Africa 2025 is officially open. God bless Zambia, God bless SADC, God bless Africa, God bless our world. I'd like to say a better word. Thank you.